Welcome to Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, founder of the Resilience series, where I spotlight these amazing leaders, speakers, coaches, all with a common thread of resilience. Webster's dictionary defines resilience as capable of withstanding shock without permanent deformation or rupture, tending to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. And let me tell you, the guest we have today, this is a woman who is truly resilient. This is a woman who, when the pandemic hit, and I don't know if it's like you out there, she literally was stopped dead in her tracks in her business and go, okay, what am I doing now? And she's made it work. And she's here to share with us the way that she's taken determination and grit and brought it back around and has actually improved on her 24-year career. Jen Buck is a professional speaker for the last 24 years and focuses on advocating, activating, and amplifying high-performing women. She speaks keynotes and trainings around the world and has an online training academy called the Her Story Collaborative. She is a best-selling author, has written 6 books, has a podcast, a webcast, a TV show, which is seen in 50 countries worldwide, and focuses on the trailblazing women who are changing their corner of the world. Wow. I think Jen's going to give us all just absolute inspiration and insight today. Welcome, Jen. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So you're down south. You've got a nice golden glow. So, I'm like up here in the snow drifts. I actually fade into the beauty of technology, right? Jane, can you share with us a little bit? So 24 years, that's a long time in a speaking career. And actually, I think, is that a little kind of trailblazing yourself as a female speaker? Can you give us a little bit of background as to who you are, what you kind of focus on speaking, and a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I guess I am a bit of an OG in this space. I remember when I turned 50 a year ago, a friend of mine said to me, "You are now an elder." And I just sort of, what, I was just so upset about that. And then she said, stop. You've made it to that space, where you've been in your career a long time, you have the accomplishments. And so I'm settling into being OG and an elder, but I started young. The truth is I was 18 and I was going to college at the time and not doing well and sort of running amok, if I'm honest. And my mom brought me to a women's conference, and that event changed my life. I mean, I knew instantly that the lightning bolt was striking and that was what I was supposed to do. And it was Joan Rivers, who was the keynote speaker, actually. I know she's my favorite human, but at the time I didn't know who she was. And so I literally said to my mom at the time, "You'll love this." I asked her, "Who's the old broad?" Because it was so early in my life. I was 18.
Now you're the old broad. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally. And so at that point, I just knew that that's what I was supposed to do. And I started telling everybody. I was, as a college student, a waitress at Chili's. And I started telling every couple and family that came in that I was going to be a motivational speaker. And it took about 2 months, and I got called, believe it or not, from a startup. And this is now an internationally known billion-dollar award-winning brand, global brand. And I helped launch that brand for the first 10 years of their inception. And so I was there for the beginning. And that's when I got the job at literally 18 to be a trainer for them. And that started everything. And that started the whole launch of my career. So I was there 10 years, and I've been doing this now 24. As of May, it'll be 24 years. And so that's what I've been doing. This is the irony of all of it, after spending 10 years at the startup, which is Discover Card. Okay. Yeah, I know. And after I spent 10 years there, I was actually hired to go and work as a speaker on the women's conference. So it came full circle within that 10-year period. And I spent 7 years on that platform, traveling around. It was amazing and incredible. And it was like a rolling sorority. And I have since then just, built an entire career off that. And so, yeah, that's the whole story in a nutshell.
And to step into a startup. So let me ask you, because there are a lot of startups, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of movement. Right. What are the key things that you saw within Discover, within that startup that you go, okay, because I'm guessing with the startup, the money wasn't huge. Like I'm
just the opposite. Just the opposite.
Was it? Okay. Yeah. So share
my gosh.
me.
So I have to tell you, here I was 18 and I didn't know what I was doing. They must have been really desperate to hire, if you think about this, an 18-year-old who was still in college to be a trainer for their leaders. It was crazy, right? And so at the time, they had so much money that we were on yachts. We were wined and dined. We were staying at 5-star resorts. We were constantly just literally poured into because it was all about the energy and it was all about, staying so loyal and being so totally in. So I think what I learned most at that time is that nothing's permanent. And that lesson has absolutely become a true north through my life. Nothing's permanent. And no matter what it is, whether it's life, family, death, loss, that kind of thing, marriage or major emotional devastation, or a process, a project, the amount of time you've put into something, nothing is permanent. And you have to be willing to pivot. You have to be willing to shift. You have to be willing to do things differently on a dime. And that was the greatest lesson I learned in those 10 years there.
So that lesson, I'm guessing, really did come in hand when all of a sudden the world stopped. It really is, when we think about it, this time period has felt much like, the old classic movie, The Day the World Stood Still, right? Yeah. So when you talk about pivot, I know that you have you have basically a AAA kind of look at your business, the activate and amplify. Can you share with me what the lessons that you pull forward and how you pivoted, how you went from an in-person coach, and that's our speaker, and that's your moneymaker, Yeah. And I don't know in your home, in my home, I'm pretty much the front end of the money, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm not working, the money's not coming in.
Same.
Okay. So you get it. You got to love these men who aren't afraid, right?
Yeah, seriously. And I have to say, when the pandemic happened, thankfully, my guy rallied and just stepped up to the plate and hit a home run. So, I had very little to worry about in that respect, but I will tell you that, I've spent all these years at the time, you figure 22 years, right? And I have spent all of these years in front of audiences. So that's how I shake my moneymaker. That's how I get all of my leads. That's how I get all of my events that come from that platform. It jumps me into people's, corporations and working with their CEOs and all that. And all of a sudden, everything's gone. So it wasn't just the gig, it was the stream of events and trainings and coachings and all the things that come with it. So all leads gonzo overnight. So I really struggled, obviously, like every other speaker I know. And there are very few of us left. It's been an interesting and sad time for me to see how many speakers have left the speaking industry and have retired or gone into corporate training or just moved and pivoted. So it was tough, but I knew I couldn't, let me say this the right way. I knew I couldn't afford, if I'm completely transparent, to keep the people employed who were running my front end, back end, all the technical. I couldn't do it anymore, right? Because there's no income. And I also knew that everything was transitioning to digital and I had nothing. Like I had no digital whatsoever. I think I had 700 people following me on Instagram. Like that was my big win, was 700 people. And so I had to learn about social media. I had to learn about digital content. I had to learn about creating, a newsletter and funnel and all the things. I didn't have any of it. And when I say none of it, I mean, not even a YouTube. Like I had nothing. And because I didn't need it, right? At the time, I was just cruising on Easy Street, based on the in-person events. And so as it turns out, I went into full learning mode that year. I went into a space of literally consuming so much content, taking so many courses, learning how to use these systems and platforms, let's say that too, social media systems and platforms as lead magnets, as money generators, and I really had to learn. But I also did something interesting that I'd love to get your input on this too, that was very different. And I didn't know anybody else doing this. I contacted every one of my clients and I said, as long as we're in lockdown, you get everything for free. And I gave away all free training, all free keynotes, all free coaching, all free everything. And we started doing fireside chats once a month with the leadership teams where we just all get on Zoom and just talk about what's going on. Every single thing. I did not make one penny from March 12th on. And that's why I say, thank goodness my guy jumped up and just carried us. And he did. It was great. But I really thought that it was important for me not to become a vulture and try to pull every dime out of my customers and clients who were dying on the vine themselves. And it ended up paying off. 2021 hit, and man, it was off to the races again.
That's a true side of service. And also, like, having been in real estate past my 20 years in real estate, that's also top of mind. So they may not be able to buy today, but they're still looking. And if you're in front of them and you're available and you're contributing, and I think that that's really important. It's a kind of an anomaly. First thing I want to ask before I even go down the rabbit hole, energy. You're a front of person, interactive. How do you maintain your energy where it transitions over the different platforms where you're interfacing through the computer? Because I know for myself, that is one of my greatest personal struggles is my energy is the humanness of, So share with us your energy, and then we're going to come back to my rabbit hole.
Okay. So I think for me, energy is one of those things that's just sort of in abundance. And so I do a lot of talking. Like right now, I'm not using too much gestures and all of that like I normally do, but energy is sort of, on fire here in general. And so you're right, being on camera, you have to be way more contained. It's what you and I know about working in front of a camera. Your gestures can only be so big, all of those rules that we have. But I don't pay attention. I am all in and I use all the gestures and I move around. And one of the things I'm doing now with my clients is actually doing the trainings that I do and keynotes, the ones that are virtual, out of a studio. And so I'm actually standing and I'm on a set and I am moving around and I've got the 2 camera shots and I have a team that's, following me, because that's the way we truly transcend and make this hybrid world really feel like it's real, right? Is by having that energy of movement. And so it is somewhat restrictive, but I still use all the energy and I still have all the, sort of crazy gestures and whatnot. But I will say that I think getting back to working in a studio and actually being big, like on stage, it takes it to another level, right? Because that's what we want. We want all that authentic, wonderful energy. So
absolutely. So I want to touch base on, we will have a new group of speakers coming up. I'm already starting to see women. I was talking to a gal out of New Jersey yesterday. She's been a coach for 6 years in sexuality and spirituality. So it's actually a really interesting field. However, when we work and we constantly work in the same pool, we can exhaust our opportunities. And if you aren't out connecting and networking, you're not encountering the opportunities to meet and connect with the people that could pay you for your expertise. So one of the things I asked her was, do you have a speakers bureau? What are you doing? I mean, because she does acting. She's from Jersey, New York area. I think everybody there has acted at some point in time. But so when we're looking at this with these new crop of speakers coming up, especially with us wanting to see more women in this space, what are some of the things that you would suggest, like from the speaker bureau, how to get connected, especially in a world that's literally just starting to kind of come online? There are still several countries that are still very restricted.
Right.
So what are some of the things that you would advise this 30-something or 25-year-old something female who wants to become a recognized speaker?
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts. The first thing I would say, and I think this is sort of a given, get a coach, get someone who's been there, done that, get someone who can just walk you through it, can give you a list. You need these things. Look at this. Go down to this vendor and do this, even if it's, online or remotely. Try this, work on that. So get someone who's been there, done that. And that's the first thing I would say. Now, if somebody's going to just sort of move through it on their own, they're going to need to have their assets, speaker assets that are in place. I can tell you on my website, jenbuckspeaks.com, if you go to the event planner page, you'll see that I have all my assets, and it's 12 different downloadable, fully branded individual documents. And that goes from my bio to my speaker list, my keynotes, my background, you name it, it's all there. And they want to know all of that. They don't want it in one document. They used to like everything in one sort of marketing package or kit. Now they want to have everything separated. And so having those speaker assets done is really important. Another thing I would say is that you have to have a speaker reel, and your speaker reel needs to be 5 minutes. Has to be. And there needs to be B-roll in it. There needs to be, you on stage. They need to see you at different levels of energy. They want to see, can you speak in front of a small intimate group, a medium group, a mega group? So that means that many people that are starting are going to need to start speaking for free, because you won't have your speaker asset. So it's hard to get those gigs, right? So the last thing I would say is get on eSpeakers. eSpeakers is a website where bureaus will use it, and you'll understand this. They'll use it for the back end of their website. So the front end is all, we're Speakers Bureau 123, but the back end is 100% eSpeakers. So when you get on there, you get these speakers bureaus from all over the world who are looking for, let's just say, women in leadership. Well, I happen to come up as number 3 in women in leadership. So I know that it's not just the speakers bureaus. I've got 20 speakers bureaus right now that I have a relationship with who sell me, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds who are using eSpeakers, right? And so it's really about making sure you have your speaker asset so you can set up your profile on eSpeakers, because you want to have all of that on that as well. So that's a very long answer, but
no, that is awesome, because as I mentioned earlier, my gig has been over the last 6 years is production of television shows. And they always throw me in the front because I'm the cheapest and easiest they can find, right? And being an American in Canada, they all go, she's unique, right?
Yeah.
I think that just means loud, but
that's so funny. Yes.
So I'm learning from you as you're speaking this, because I end up speaking when people need somebody to speak on community and resilience. And those are my niche things. And that's just all in the local. I do know that a really great opportunity a lot of speakers don't look at is getting time in front of high school students.
Yeah.
Great audience. And all you have to do is say, if somebody's looking and say, I'm open to speak. This is what I speak on. If you want your high school students, I would like to bring a cameraman in. Everything you do, every time you speak, you should be documented, because
absolutely.
I know that a good speaker reel is anywhere between $10,000 and $40,000. And the more you can bring to it, it makes a more cohesive storyline.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, there are also lots and lots of retirement communities who are, and I'm talking about the ones where you have people who are very active. I'm not necessarily talking about a group that, is in a rehabilitative space or that kind of thing, that kind of home. But when you go into these really robust retirement communities, they need people to speak at different things that they have. And they're not looking to put a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 speaker on stage. They're looking for someone from the community who wants to give back. Again, it's another audience. Churches, another audience. And so there are ways to get out there. And even on eSpeakers, they have free events where people are looking for speakers all the time. Here's another one. Hint, hint, hint. Just Google call for speakers. Call for speakers. because every website, every bureau that has, or every planner that's looking for a speaker who has call for speakers on their website, you're going to pull it. Right? So
yeah,
there's the button, there's the submission form. You have your speaker assets ready. You're ready to just drop it in, hit submit. So a lot of people overlook these things. It's the information's out there. You just have to, sort of constantly play around with it and look for where are the leads, where can you find things. So, yeah.
I think a lot of times people are waiting for business to come to them.
Of course.
And that I think that you have to realize that as a professional speaker, you are 100% an entrepreneur. And that means you have to go and find your business. Right. I had somebody, it was interesting. So there's this pay to play. Everybody goes, oh, pay to play, it's not earned, so forth, so on. And the reality is that there is cost involved everywhere. Mm-hmm. And unless you are Mel Robbins, Oprah, or Michelle Obama, if you're an emerging speaker or not at 24 years, there may be cost associated to the stage. Yeah. And that's fair. That's absolutely fair. As somebody who, like I said, as a host, the stages and such, an in-person stage done right is a couple $100,000. And if that person cannot sell all the tickets to offset the speaker, they have to then bring in a keynote that will help sell, right? Mm-hmm. Because, I was talking to, a couple of very well-known keynotes that have, had a movie named after them and things like that. And it's like, it's $30,000, $40,000, which is totally understandable because you have a finite window to make your money. Right. It's all a business. So what would you say is the common misconception in the speaking world when it comes to kind of moving up and building, and what are the opportunities that the things that they may see in the business?
I think a common misconception is that speaking is something that anyone can do because they can talk. Professional speaking is not public speaking. They're two very different things. Anybody can publicly speak, right? But much like being a dancer or being, an author, we have the ability to write and we have the ability to move our feet. But to do it professionally, it really does take an understanding of the mechanics, the expectation, the arc of storytelling, taking this classes on not only telling a story, but how to land humor. I mean, these are things I've had to spend years developing. And it's not just about being perky and being passionate. It really is about understanding the mechanics of being a speaker. And it's also something that you have to be willing to constantly change because the world changes, right? And so while I think I'm wildly cool, I don't know that my 24-year-old thinks that I'm the coolest on the planet. I mean, she does think I'm really a cool mom, but she doesn't think I'm 24. But I have to be able to speak that language. I have to know what's cool. I have to know what the pulse is because my audiences aren't all 50, right? My audiences are going to be these up and comers, these movers and shakers that are 20, 30, early 40s, these people who absolutely have a different language. They have a different way of living, a different expectation of how things should look. So you're constantly changing. So even though you have this identification, I'm a speaker who speaks on resilience, I'll use that. Your stories, the way you use language has to change constantly. And it's a lot of learning. It's a lot of investigating. It's a lot of research because you have to be able, you can't step on stage and say something along the lines of, I sound like a broken record.
Mm-hmm. And it can't be the exact same thing. Otherwise, if you say only the same thing every single time, which I think was very much like the 80s and 90s, get your one can talk and it's your talk every single time, right?
Yes, right.
So I do know that there is some keynotes out there who absolutely refuse you cannot take video of them or anything because it's the same talk they're going to do the next time and the next time and the next time.
But if you think about what I said, though, it's not just that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you go for it.
So I can't say the phrase like a broken record. I can't say that phrase because there are only a few of us over 40 who are going to understand.
Would even get it. Oh, see, I'm 52. I totally didn't. That literally just went over my head because I got it.
And you and I are basically the last generation that listen to records regularly, right? As the norm. So there are things, and that was where I was going with that. You have to be willing to have your finger on the pulse, always be adjusting and pivoting and changing and going with what's happening, because you don't want to become that person who only is a one-hit wonder, who only has one thing to say, who can only do one lane, because there is so much work out there for brilliant people. If you're able to be broad, but understand also where your niche is too. That niche is still very important, but you've got to be broad and flexible enough to understand the importance of the pivot,
Absolutely. By the way, you have absolutely stunning eyes. I can see why people would like you. Actually, I can see how you would pivot during COVID and having to interface through the computer, through a screen, because your eyes are they pull people right in. So 6-time author.
Yeah.
What is something that you wish you would have gotten into a book now? Because you haven't written a book in the last 12 months. Life has been absolutely this is like, and this is something you couldn't stay on the stage. This is like a Monty Python episode. I swear. No, I'm just waiting for the locusts and the zombie apocalypse to come. Right.
Yes.
I feel like it's been a man in Florida every day, every state, everywhere, but let's keep going. So what is a sequel? What is something that you would write now that you think belongs in one of your books? So share with us one of the books that you've written that you're really very proud of. And what would you add to it from your experiences over the last 18 months?
I just actually put a book out. It was maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and it's called Glow Up, and it's all about utilizing this whole concept of live streaming, whatever it is, to get your message out there. And what I would like to do is actually add to that and maybe create a series around Glow Up they're all, meant to be for women, getting women to move forward. But I think the next one, what I'd like to spend more time on, has to do with the bravery that's needed to get in front of that camera, in front of that microphone, that deep, deep bravery. It's the old stories, the old failures, the old thoughts that keep us from moving into a really great direction where we're all doing this right now, live streaming like you and I are connecting. And I already know I like you. Like I know that just by looking at you, right? And so I think that women need to recognize that there's so much power in this, and you have the ability to make such an impact and really create this reverberation. And I think that's the piece that I left out of that. I was so focused on getting the facts and details and info out there that I wish I would have spent a little more time on that. So I keep telling myself I'm going to actually go back and add to it or do some type of epilogue or something, because I think that maybe that piece was overlooked,
Absolutely. I think because we've got this, I see this interesting duality with women. So we have younger women coming up, and they've been hearing, don't give it away for free. Don't do it for free. Demand the money, demand the money. So they'll come out of the box when they are starting their social media company or starting a consulting company or, and they're going, I'm going to get $65 an hour. And if you won't pay, and yet they don't have anything to prove that. And then you have a lot of the older women where myself, you're raised with this, sit properly in church, ladies don't behave that way. So then there's a lot of this negative self-talk, right? Yeah. So it's almost like we have this overabundance of confidence at one side, right? That doesn't have a lot of the experience. And we have the feeling of almost imposter syndrome on the other side. Yes. So when we look at this, and we know that statistically speaking, when they poll people who go to see speakers, men in the majority will go to a male speaker or male coach, and women 50% of the time will identify a male coach or a male speaker. So that means that 25%, right, of the audience will intentionally seek out a female speaker, female coach.
Right.
So 2 questions here. If we have this duality of the competence, but no credibility or credentials, and we have this incredible credentials and women who have just busted it, and yet they don't maybe have the confidence to step on stage. And then we have a small pool of people who will intentionally seek these women out. What are some of the solutions you could see that would help our planners change their language on their copy to attract audience and help the young women get their credentials and the older women to get their confidence? Does that make sense? To me, I see it as this almost trifecta of the reason we don't have enough women on our stages.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to try to answer the question. I think I'm tracking.
It's a big one. It's a big one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And you're right. So here's what we have going on right now. We have so many male speakers compared to female speakers. There just are more. All right. We also have a huge disparity in what men have been paid in their speaker fees versus what women are paid. Now, I have right on my website reasons to hire Jen Buck. And one of them is because, damn it, she's a woman and we need more representation on that platform, than seeing a bunch of dudes. And I throw it out there. I throw it right out there. This is ridiculous that we have so few women, that we have 8 men and 1 woman on a stage. And I've lived through this for 20 plus years, being the only woman on a stage. And so it's not okay. It needs to change. But what also needs to happen is there needs to be, like you said, of the trifecta, there needs to be this upswell in women and their confidence and their ability to say, I am worth this. Now, let's give you a little secret. I have a guy that I started speaking with way back when, and we have spoken exactly the same. We even share a lot of the same clients. We're on a lot of the same platforms. I finally decided to look at what he was charging. Keep in mind, all the same everything. We've been all these years, we're talking 20 plus years, and he was charging $5,000 more than I was. And I had to think about this. I have more books. I have an online platform. My client list is actually larger now. And I realized I was in it too. I was in this space where I was undervaluing myself. So there is a huge need for women to come out and say, I am worth this. When I look at my speaker stats, and I get speaker stats every day, I can see exactly what my fee is versus all other women. The average is I'm 40% higher than every other woman speaking in my industry. Not every, but the average, 40%. And you know why I'm 40% more? Because I've done 40% more. Because I have helped start and create this massive behemoth in this startup I was a part of. I have created businesses. I have 2 nonprofits. I sit on board. I do more.
But you also ask for it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of women do not ask for it. We have been programmed and trained, especially those of us who are over like that 35 mark. We have all been programmed and trained to, you just keep giving. We give to our children, we give to our community, we give to our partner, we give to our employer, we give to our family and our crazy uncle 3 times removed. Yeah. We give, and we're, I don't know. It's a truly fascinating, and I'm just as guilty. It's a paradigm
change. Yeah, it's really a paradigm change, because for some reason we equate asking for more for ourselves as being somehow less that can be given to others,
or less authentic. You know how many times I hear a woman say, "Oh, I do it for free." I hear it all the time. And I now,
but I am, sister.
I'm now like, yeah, but the bank doesn't let you live in your house for free. So, in talking, I was talking to a gal the other day, and she doesn't have, as you were mentioning, those credibility and those assets in place. Mm-hmm. And we were talking, and I said, let me ask you, what's your goal? What's your goal? What do you want to make next year or this year, 2022? And she goes, well, I'd really like to make 150. And I said, is that all? Okay, that's totally doable. Right. I mean, I understand that I live in a very different world because I am in the top 10% earning of real estate in North America. Like I've always been very high numbers. So I work in large numbers, but I still don't think that that's a lot to ask for. No, especially. It's not okay. So I'm not. So I'm looking at her going, well, okay, that's totally doable. Let me ask you this. If you stuck to your guns and you asked for the money and you made that money, who would you empower? What change would you create? Who would you support? And she goes, oh, I would do this, this, and this. And it's like, well, then isn't it selfish or negligent almost not to ask for the money that you are educated in and you can get? Yeah. Yeah. Because those people are counting on you. They just don't know it yet. Right. And let me tell you, as much like, in the world of professional speaking, because you are a professional speaker, if you are in media and you're in front of a camera, you are a professional speaker. You may not be a stage speaker, but you, my friend, are a professional speaker. And you understand that even though it seems very strange that people in this professional speaking role are paid this much money, the truth is we're the messengers. And there's a sense of responsibility with the messengers. And you've got to be really careful with what you do, how you say it, where you are sharing, how much you're sharing, the energy you bring. Messengers are paid a lot of money. And I know that seems strange and backward, but it's true. And so to undervalue yourself at this point makes no sense because you're stepping into an industry that is known for paying messengers very well. And so there's something there that is hard for women. I see it every day when I'm looking at speaker stats and I see their fee and I think, oh my God, this woman's been doing it as long as I have. She has just as many speaker assets. What in the world? But she's asking for half of what I do. And I know that I'm in the right place. Well, I know I'm well matched. I think a lot of people also, if you're coming from an employee world or a work world, yes. Right? So you have to remember so anybody who has not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you need to get on that. It is important because you need to know the 4 quadrants of where your money goes to and comes from and such. And being a speaker, in which you found having those assets moves you over into the business owner, but being a speaker, you're still self-employed. So it's time in, money out. And the bigger the speaking, the more people you have to employ. It's the same as real estate. Right. Real estate, time in, money out. And yet most people go, you're going to make $40,000 off the sale of my house. Well, the reality is I'm actually going to pay $40,000 or $20,000 to sell your house because this is where all the money goes. This is my staff. Right. So I would love to do like, maybe even Clubhouse, we could do that whole credibility and understanding the business side of speaking. Everybody wants to run in because everybody's got, as you mentioned, a passion or a message. But the reality is it is a business and you need to know how to run the back end in order to ensure that when the zombie apocalypse happens and we go all behind the screen again, you still have revenue. Right. So share with me, what would be the advice that you would give, although you did just come right out of the gate and just take the bull by the horns. What would be the advice, the first 3 steps for somebody new coming in, a young person wanting to come into speaking, woman? I'm one of those people that says, go all the way in, follow that purpose. You were given that spark for a reason. I think every one of us are on some level messengers, but we do it differently. And if you feel that your message is that big, do not listen to one other person's advice because you were the one that was given the talent to carry through your lifetime. They weren't given it, so they don't have the advice for you unless you're speaking to another speaker who can tell you exactly what steps to take. So go all in. Your message was given to you for a reason. That is absolutely all in. Where can you share with us, first of all, what is your key saying? What's the one thing, what's your North Star? Can you share that with us again? What is your North Star quote that, when the chips are down or things are kind of spinning, what's your quote?
Chin up, shoulders back, march. And that was from my grandmother, who raised 3 girls. I was the only girl in our family of 7 boys, and I'm not the very youngest, but I'm at the bottom of the heap. I only have one younger cousin younger than me, but only girl, 7 boys. And that was what my grandmother raised my aunts with, and my mom. Chin up, shoulders back, march. And it's what was given to me as I was being usually pummeled by 7 boys at any given moment. Chin up, shoulders back, march. And that goes along with that whole idea of you have to be willing to pivot because nothing's permanent, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Progress over perfection every time. Do not be afraid of imperfections, because imperfections is what makes your story amazing. Real quick, can you share with us everywhere we can find you? How can we support you, align with you, and where can we listen to you?
Thank you. So I am on every single social media platform. Even the ones that are for 20-year-olds, I'm on those too. And I am at Jen, one N, Jen Buck, B-U-C-K, Speaks, like I'm doing now. Jen Buck Speaks everywhere. So if you look up Jen Buck Speaks on any platform, you will find me. And let's see, my website is jenbuckspeaks.com. And I've got lots of freebies that I give away. If you are interested in lots of fun, cool things, you can find those at jenbuck.rocks. So that's that. And then let's see, my organization is called the Her Story Collaborative. And you can go to the herstorycollaborative.com. And that is an online learning. So it's virtual learning at your own pace. And it's an academy for women to help women get into those spaces of leadership and power. So it's about, right now, I think there are 12 different really affordable courses on there for women to take.
Amazing. And her story, was that an evolution through the pandemic, or is that
absolutely?
It was. Okay. And I actually was fascinating is when I saw that associated to your name, I didn't realize that was you, because I actually have received messages through social media a lot I've had people forward things from social media from her story.
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
There's another Jen. I love her. We're pals. And she has an organization called Her Stories. So
you're just with the Y, right? Yeah. It was yours. Somebody sent something to me and said, "Oh, check this out," or something like, and I was like, "Oh," and then it just all came together today.
That's cool.
You are absolutely making things happen. If random people in Canada are getting messages sent to them saying, "Check this out." Yay. So great job!
I love
it. So you'll be working well into your 80s, and chin up, shoulder backs, marching right in. Right?
That's
awesome. I think if we can all learn something from Betty White, don't retire. You'll live forever as long as you don't retire.
100.
God loved that woman. She was just one of my absolute favorites, like your Joan Rivers and all these incredible women. And we've got big shoes to fill. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the young women after us. Yeah. So again, Jen, thank you so much for sharing your time, your energy, and your insight with us. I'm sure people are going to be reaching out, wanting to get more information from you. But in the meantime, till the next podcast drops, I am Kim Hayden. I am so grateful that you took your time, the most valuable resource, non-renewable resource that you have, and you shared it with me. Out of all the crazy people in this gin joint, you chose me to spend your time with today. And I am ever grateful. So until next time, remember, your past does not define your future, and you must be resilient. That's one foot in front of the other and make things happen. I'm Kim Hayden with KimTalks.club, and check us out at resilientseries.com.